Welcome to Tattoo Shop Talk, which is somewhat weekly web show where we do random chit-chats and conversations that are related to this tattoo shop environment, and this time we will talk about stories that are somewhat funny, probably not funny for them involved. They will not be just stories to laugh about them, there'll be stories that you will get some useful info out of it, so kind of like, okay, I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't be that guy.
I think you have to start with the story that's like the most fresh story.
The most
and
fresh
it was
story.
Amazing.
Not saying names, kind of a thing. I'm having a customer in, and customer's friend who's there to support that customer is having a reaction to that customer having procedure. So I'm setting up for piercing. I'm explaining to customer, so this will happen now, we'll do this, we'll mark that, blah 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 blah. I think we're talking a bit of aftercare, and it was at the time where people should wear masks. Customer's friend is sitting on sofa and just suddenly stands up, squeezes past us, narrows in between the bench and everything, opens a bin, pulls mask down, and starts to throw up. And not just like, a quick bleh, but a proper like bleh with burping, and all I hear in the background is Carlos with his customers like, we just gonna wait a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. I didn't even notice, but she was puking. I was thinking that she's just burping like crazy.
Then she just stood up and was like, sat down. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just very afraid of needles. So the obvious tip here is don't be that friend who's afraid of needles and coming to support, or don't be that customer who brings in a friend who's terrified of needles, who's gonna puke up. And luckily it was in a bin with a bit of spillage, but sometimes those things go ballistic.
But so random.
Yeah, it was. I was confused. I was like, you just puked in my floor, but I was like, I don't want to be on like, what the fuck? So I was like, I just want this person out and clean this up and forget about the story. But it's a story worth noting. So
yeah,
know your nerve. Know your nerve. Know what can trigger. Know your stomach.
But it seemed like she's been doing that before, and it's okay with her to puke in other people's trash cans.
Yeah, and it's not nice to clean that stuff up, and I'm like, I don't want to be the guy who's like, now you will clean this up.
I bet that there is every shop on the planet had someone puked, I think.
The first time, it was back in the first shop where I worked, and a girl, she had a piercing, everything was fine. We talked everything out, she paid, and then suddenly she sat down, and then she's like, oh, I feel sick, and then it was all the noises, and then she just like, blah, went on the floor. Like this last example was more like a watery type of a situation. The previous one was a smoothie type of a thing.
Watery.
And, I was the one cleaning it up. Luckily we had the kit with all the, like, you pour some sort of granule type of a thing, so it absorbs it and you can scrape it off.
Jesus Christ.
But if I would have to, it was still disgusting, but if I would have to throw paper towels over it, and after that I learned my lesson. When someone starts to burp, I just kick the bin towards them. I'm like, this is your element. If anything happens, it happens here. Suggestion to customers?
Yeah.
Know your gut, and suggestion to people working within a thing. If you see something suspicious, throw the bin, kick it, take it to them, be like, if anything happens, it happens in here, not around here.
Yeah, man. I just remembered my only experience with a guy puking. But lately, the guy puked because he passed out.
What a lovely...
Yeah, yeah. What is this? Wednesday?
Tattoo puke talk.
Okay, let's start. Tattoo puke talk.
Someone's saying something.
Oh, let me check It actually happens more you think it happens. And this is just the beginning. We just started with puking. You don't know what's coming next. I had a guy like 6 years ago. It was his first tattoo, and when the guy came into the shop, from the moment I saw his face, I was already like, this guy is not gonna handle well. He didn't look right for his age. It didn't feel right. But anyways, that was my gut telling me, but I never had proper experience with puking, and I tattooed him. I started lines, and suddenly he passed out, started shaking like Emily Rose. After that, he woke up, got pale and started to puke, and I told him like, go to the toilet, all good, and he was running to the toilet, and all the way he was just puking, man. There was like a trail from the chair to the toilet. And it was my last day before my holidays, and I remember how sad I was because the puke the puke was all over the place. I was for half an hour cleaning the shop till he came out from the toilet, and then he sit down and he was like, I put him in a bench, he laid down, and he was like, I don't know, man, it might happen again. and I told him, dude, like, if you lay down, you're not gonna pass out. Everything's gonna be fine. And I didn't finish his tattoo. Next time he came, he was already prepared for puking again. And I said, we are laying down, all good. And he never came back afterwards. It was his last tattoo. But I think one thing I learned from this is maybe put your customers down on the bench when you see the face and think that this is maybe gonna faint.
It's actually, there are people who have fainted and have been sick, and they know what's up, but the craziest are the people who don't know what's happening. So I often see like the eye pupils go like big, they go all like green, they sweat, and you're like, do you want to lay down? They're like, no, I'm fine. And you see they don't even see you, and then you have to be like, you want to lay down now. Because they don't know what's happening. I might be the same. I never passed out. I would be like, no, I'm good.
Who knows what happens in your head?
Who spiked my drink?
Have you guys, any of you passed it out and even puked a bit?
I had a customer who's actually very good with passing out. He wanted to do
professional
1 line or 2 lines, I don't remember, around his arm. And he came in, he was actually going to buy ceramics in the shop next door, but he came in, he's like, I think today is the day to get tattoo, because I've been tapping out like 5 times. He's been booking it in like New Zealand and then tapping out because he's like, I was too scared. We put the stencil on and I was like, okay, have a look. How does it look for you?
Yeah.
And he's like, it looks good, and I think I'm just gonna pass out. He said it in totally calm voice. I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I just feel super dizzy. Okay, then lay down. And he laid down and he got better. We made a tattoo and not a thing. But this gentleman was the example that knew how his body reacts to things.
Yeah.
The previous ones, yeah.
No, yeah. Sometimes you have a first try. I mean, how can you know? Yeah, I had also one customer who knew already. He came in, I put stencil, even before we started tattooing, I started to put stencil on it, and he was already then saying like, dude, I better lay down. I usually pass out even before the needle touches the skin.
If you read on forums, there are things that are way worse that happens.
Rocket Man said, never, man, and I also don't know anyone. Lucky you. And
Yeah.
I know you, Rocket Man, and soon I will see you in Germany.
You rocket, man. Yeah, and if we wanna top stories, let's top it gradually. With piercings, there's sometimes been things where you're like, you do a piercing and you're like, did I get paid for a piercing or was this a sex thing? Because like, you know, like a couple comes in and then let's say a lady gets a piercing and the gentleman is super supportive and the lady makes sounds that you're like, excuse me? You know, they're like... There was even a lady putting towel underneath herself for nipple piercings, and I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm just gonna do my job. But all the sounds and the gentleman is being there all like... and you're like, okay, so if this was a sex thing, I think I should got paid more.
Man.
It's been on multiple occasions where it's like, you know, there are some people who are pretty open. They're like, yeah, whatever, pierce my this thing, because I'm into this thing, but... There are some that are just like oddly on that, like, is this happening? Or I think it's happening, but I don't want to ask. I even had that one gentleman who came for his piercing in his, how to say, one-eyed snake.
Yeah, that's what you call it. The snake without teeth.
Yeah, and he came from England, and I thought he have something to do in Denmark. And he was like, no, I just came for piercing. I was like, why? Because like, if he lives in, I think in London or in some major city, and there's plenty of piercers that can do that piercing and probably better than I can, because I said I know how to do it. I have never done it. I just like, I can technically do it. He was like, oh, you're the first one who actually replied. And then I was like, right. And then some month later, he's like, oh, it was uncomfortable. I took the piercing out. We have to do it again. But he had a bit of those weird vibes. But then I was like, yeah, he booked for that piercing. He sends in pictures of those piercings at the beginning of email. So you open an email and you have this big schlong with piercings. And then underneath there's a short sentence. Can you do this? And I'm like, yeah. So I guess none of the other shops would just reply because they open email and there's like 2 or 3 gentleman sausages, and they're like, no, we're not even looking into this, because I was like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, can you do this piercing? I was like, yeah, sure, the price is this. And dude came from England, but after that I said, visit local shops, try not to send the pictures of your member first, and then see how the discussion goes. So
crazy.
That would be the tips in communication. So if you wanna stuff down there, don't start with pictures of down there, because not even people can take it personally. There's also like email filters and Facebook filters and whatnot. Like Facebook nowadays even don't tolerate swear words. If you call somebody a name, you're like, don't be such a this and that comment will be deleted. Don't start with the pictures of your
Schlang.
Or schlimblimbla.
From piercer experience, I think there have been lots of...
I think peak is, people pass out and they have reactions, but the top of the tops, it was in some other country than where I'm at now. The whole story was a lady came in, she had a consultation, she asked a bunch of questions about piercings, and then she booked in these 2 girls for belly button piercing, which is not a complex thing to do and it's very common. When they came for appointment, she was with them, she was supportive, she was older than them. First one got her piercing done, she was all good, all fine, explained all the aftercare, she was all clear. And then she walked out, I set up for another one. The other one came in, and then there was this weird commotion in a shop, and then there's receptionist running with water, and I'm like, is everything fine? And she's like, yeah, it's all good, you do your thing. I do the piercing, it's all good. I explain the aftercare. As we walk out from the piercing room, we see in the reception there's the first girl on the sofa being all fainty, but like
oh my God.
Doing that stuff. That lady who was with them, the older one, was doing all that stuff. And the third one is all happy, she sees them too. She gets all like that. So we have in this tiny shop 3 people fainting, we're running around, we're giving water, and it's just crazy. And,
oh my God, man.
And then at some point, like, they're starting to do some weird stuff. The woman stands up, she's like, oh, I don't feel well. She lays down on the floor. And I think, we worked in a shopping mall, so we had an option to like call a security to just come and help if anything. And it was the situation where we had to do that because we were like, we can't handle this, at least at the time. And then there was a point when you look at them and you're like, how was this? Like, we gave them water and you're like, how this much water spilled from that little cap? And then at one point you see that it wasn't water, it was accident. That lady had
urinated.
Kind of funny story to tell.
She probably don't remember.
Probably, but being in that situation as us and as them, it felt so uncomfortable. And you're like, yeah, you know what happens, and she's just being all over the place, like, yeah, let's just go, and like, you know, there's a security guard being.
Oh my God!
And I heard from friends in other shop where they said, like, they're like, yeah, it finally happened to us, and that's one of those. They're like, yeah, it happens, and the person is like, fuck, and you are like, shit. So that's the most uncomfortable story. There's been way more uncomfortable
stories.
stories.
Like, we had a guest artist from Bulgaria who told the story that in Bulgaria, Sunny Beach is called that. There was this old guy in a really hot day, went to the shop and he got a tattoo on his shoulder and he died in a chair, man. And then after that tattooer left the shop. He couldn't work there anymore, and then shit like
traumatic.
that. It's dramatic, man. But I mean,
dramatic and traumatic.
yeah. Oh man.
Also, from those weird sunny beach stories, I heard that, like, you know, people sometimes fuck off without paying. Like, we had a lady recently here, person fucked off without paying. But
yeah, like
she
ran
was-
away. Yeah,
She
yeah.
was just like, oh, I'm gonna go to ATM, and then she's like, oh, I'm hit by bicycle and all that. It was reported to police. I have all the papers. I just have to make a civil case. But that's a different story.
But that's a good one. Like, I mean, I experienced only one time that the guy ran away, and it was a Norwegian guy in Latvia. It's like you couldn't even dream that happened. A Norwegian guy comes to holidays in Riga in Latvia, comes to us, get us a tattoo, and then walks to bring a cash back, and he never shows up afterwards. And I'm like, what?
If local tattooists are watching, hit me up. I'll give you details so you don't get messed around.
Yeah,
'cause,
that thing is for real, man.
I called police, and police contacted her because we had all the legit names and all that, and they said it's not a first time for her, so she's messing with a lot of local businesses. But okay, person fucked off without paying, it happens. But I heard in one of those sunny beach type of settings, I don't know if it was like Cyprus or that, there was a situation that people who worked in a shop, a guy came in with a suitcase. He's like, this is my last day. I'm leaving the island. I want to get a tattoo. Okay, they made a tattoo. Like, he had to pay. He's like, oh, I'm just going to go to cash point. I'm just going to leave my suitcase here. You know, like, this is all my stuff. He never came back. They checked the suitcase. It was just a suitcase, like empty suitcase.
This is crazy. You plan this out. It's like a professional. So, any stories about poo-poo?
I heard stories of poo-poo. I heard.
Bring it on. I want to hear it.
But I read them. It's not my personal experience. And also at the place where I was learning about piercings, guy said that his friend had a situation where somebody passed out. And,
Oh no, and shit.
And shit happened.
Shit happened. Holy schmackles. What do you do then, you know? Just act professional? Just
Yeah.
like give a paper towel?
I well, hope that they wake up. I heard from female tattooing a dude, and the dude had a boner.
Oh my.
Because it was something on the stomach area,
yeah.
and then they just went through it and just like, fuck this person. And also one guy I know, he said he was tattooing a person, and the person was like, do you mind if I watch a video to be distracted while tattooing? He's like, cool, no worries. And then he looks up, and dude is watching porn, and he's like,
dude. Okay. Remember that guy from... There's something with Bulgaria. But
that's something. Someone
remember
saying something.
There's a question. Yeah, guys, have anybody took a caca like in between the session that it was so smelly to work further?
That's like comedian Joey Diaz.
I mean, poo-poo is a big thing. I think even if you do a poo-poo, you will hide it somehow.
Ooh, I worked in a shop.
Yeah,
I worked in a shop, but it's not poo-poo related. The manager of the shop, who's usually sitting at the computer, is chilling on the sofa. And I'm sitting at the computer, and suddenly door opens, and a lady comes in, and another lady is waiting at the door. And the lady is asking just some simple questions. Like, it's super simple. I don't remember. It was like, you're like, yeah, it's super chill. You just like, I don't know, we look at some fonts, or you show us the pattern. And as she talks, you can see that her face start to change. And as her face start to change, I start to smell something in the air, but super intense.
Oh my God.
And she, like, you can see she wants to finish the conversation, and the smell gets to me, and it's this crazy as shit smell. And you can see her friend just leaves the premise, and she's like, okay, I will get back to you. Okay, and I'm like, I'm confused. I'm like, why is this conversation like that? Why is the smell like that? She walks out, her manager, he just starts to laugh like crazy. I'm like, what? He's like, I ripped the fattest fart ever as they came in.
Oh no!
So it just accumulated and started to smell, and it was this, I don't
survival mode for
It
everyone.
could be 2, it could be 5-minute conversation that like was so
Oh
awkward.
my god.
Even other tattooist came in half hour later. He's like,
What's
the
this?
smell? I'm like, that fucking fucker farted. He said it smells like somebody who took a heavy shit in the toilet and it's slowly airing out.
Oh
you know?
my
But it was so weird and so uncomfortable and so smelly.
I just remembered
So
one.
shout out to Edgar.
In our shop in Latvia, in Riga, we have a toilet and there is a shower in the toilet, but it's like with the curtains closed down and obviously it does not look like a place where to...
It's where you store.
Yeah, there's
room
some...
or something.
Yeah. So we had one customer who came and he was waiting for his appointment and he decided to go to the toilet to, I don't know, pee or whatever. So he went in there and the doors of course are locked and the guy's there for like half an hour. Afterwards he came out like with wet hair. So he decided to take a shower in our shop with not even, like he went to the toilet, he saw the shower, he was like, oh, it's a good time to shower maybe. And he took a shower and everything was perfect afterwards. It was like weird experience. Yeah.
The things happening in toilet, people stealing from shops. We
wow,
worked together.
we had this one.
Like
stealing.
One
thief.
lady came in a shop. She was weird. She was either ill or medicated or drunk. Like, you know, but you see that there's something off with the person. She wanted a nose piercing, I think, but she looked so off that I was like, there's clearly something off with you and I don't feel comfortable piercing you because you don't look well. And she was like, oh, I just feel sick because I have this like running nose and all that. So you have a running nose, it's not a reason to get a nose piercing at this moment. You can have it sometime later. And she had those bunch of shopping bags and she was all over the place and everything. Then she's like, can I use your bathroom? I was like, yeah, sure. She went in there, then she walked out, then she get in her taxi and drove off, and I was like, I should check the toilet, but I don't know if I'll see something horrible or not so horrible. And we had this bird cage in there.
Oh man.
And that was gone. And I know that it was in there. And
of course
the funny part with that customer is, again, I don't want to say what exactly that phrase is, but when I said ask a question, she said specific phrase. And then next day she called the shop and she asked, can I book the same piercing? And I was like, sorry, blah blah blah, and she replied exactly the same way, and I was like, how about our bird cage? And she's like, what about it? It's like, it went missing after you. And then she's like, I know nothing. And I was like, yeah, you're pretty sure it's you? And she's like, okay, yo loss. And
oh wow, man, remember that girl who after the session went to the toilet and couldn't get out of the toilet, but the doors were not closed, locked, and she was like start to scream and like, ah, let me out, ah, it's not funny.
But that was a fair reaction, because if you are not comfortable in those, like,
I think it was funny.
It was funny for us, and it's funny to tell, but it
you know what's
wasn't
funny? Because it happened only once in my life, you know? I never experienced anything.
I'm sure
like
it wasn't funny, but...
Not for her, for sure.
I think, yeah, it's the right
thing. I think
thing.
shitting in a tattoo shop is pretty not funny.
Yeah. Also, I heard a story of a girl getting... But that was from a customer. That girl was getting tattoo on her stomach, and she needed to shit really bad, but she was holding on through it, but she was like kind of too shy to take a break before and do her thing, so she was just like, oh, holding it in.
Man,
so.
it's crazy stuff.
I heard a crazy story of some, like, you know, there's this joke that if you mistreat tattooists, then they will sneak in a dick design and a tattoo. And I heard from tattooists that is like, oh yeah, I did it, and that guy deserved it. Don't make tattooists make dicks in your design.
It's like when you go to the restaurant and don't talk shit with the...
Ooh!
Yeah.
Bring it on. The reactions of fainting. Again, as we touched that there are those reactions for people who haven't fainted. A couple came in for piercings. Girl got a piercing. It was all cool. And then breakdown, set up.
Tell me.
We set up for the guy, did everything, did the piercing, and then they both standing in front of me. I'm explaining what to do with the piercing and all that. So the setting is like, I am here, girl is there, guy is there, and the bed is here. And suddenly the girl takes a step forward and I'm like, where is she going? Because there's a bed.
Yeah.
And she collapses, hits her face on the bed, falls down on the floor, passed out, I don't remember, eyes open or closed. And they did not speak much English, so our communication was very distant, but I was like, it's all good, I know what I'm doing. You see the guys freaking out, the girl's passed out on the floor, trying to handle the situation. I was like, let her lie down. Yeah, and she was fine. But I was so scared. I was like, is this fine? Does this hurt? Is like, cause when she was like, check this, check this, check this, cause she went just full on and fell down.
Oh man, it happened many times, but not lately. People don't pass out because we set them up.
But also it's like on the weather, cause that happened in Spain and it was super like one of those super heavy humid days. In one of the shops here, I had a person passing out at the reception where she's on the other side of counter and her boyfriend is catching, and you're like, oh shit.
But for doing piercings, a lot of
I think it's a stress thing, because they're like,
for sure,
they're like, I'm super scared, then they're like, oh, it wasn't that bad, it's all good, and then when they're relaxed, they go. I had once a lady pass out, like I talked to her like this in this distance, explain all the aftercare, and the bed is behind her, and then she sort of, her pupils go big, and she leans back a little bit and starts to shake like this, but slowly. And I'm like, what's going on? And then I'm like, oh, she's out, so I could put her up on the bed, and it was all good.
Lately, not happening, so it's good. I think people getting stronger mentally. They know what they're
with
getting.
Tattoos, it's usually kind of before tattoo, or like in the very beginning.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, the last time I saw someone fainted was in Denmark. When I worked like 4 years ago. Maybe in Riga they come here, they are like prepared mentally.
I had those 3 dudes on a hot summer day getting their nipples pierced, and I pierced first one nipple. It was all good. I'm just making people faint, I think, now. But
she fainted.
He was fine, and then his friend was getting piercing, and other friend went to toilet, and he was waiting outside the piercing room, and he fainted like flat on the floor. His friend ran up to him from the toilet. He's like, dude, is my phone okay? So that's the friendship.
Yeah.
I remember you got scared from the mom who came in for a girl who was getting piercing. And then you came from toilet and you're like, what's going on? And coming out from toilet in the waiting room, there's a woman with eyes open laying in the sofa and staring into the universe.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. I remember when I worked with you, I saw some girl coming out from the piercing area, like room. And just before she's gonna give you money, she's like on the floor and all this, like, I never had that with the tattooing customers.
They more stressed. They usually younger.
But it's also
I had a
piercing hurts more, I think.
I had a girl who was like, I'm dizzy, I'm gonna lay down. And she had like 4 friends who was super supportive. And they all lay down on the floor with her. So you're just looking at the shop front and I'm like, oh, okay. It's a beach now.
Any fidgety customers during piercings?
Fidgety?
Yeah, fidgety.
I had fidgety customers that I didn't do piercings. I had a girl, I think she had some Tourette's of some sort, and she was like, how much is for the piercing, and doing all the thing. Obviously I told all the prices and all that, but I was like, there's no way I can do a piercing if she keeps on doing the whole that thing. Yeah, no, like fidgety, if they're too fidgety, you just don't do the piercing, because like I said, I had a couple of people who had Tourette's, so it's just scary, you don't even approach that situation. You often see more grabby types of people, so they would try to be like, I'm so scared, and they will try to grab you or something. Sometimes scary. Once a girl pushed my arm off and I stabbed myself, and then I had to go to doctors and do all that stuff, and it was all good. I had a weird interaction with an older lady who just slowly squeezed my arm and looked into my eyes. So that was a bit weird, but we did piercing as it should be. Yeah, I just always recommend to people, if they are like on the moving and they look like grabby type, so they would put their hands underneath themselves if they're laying down, so that they don't have a chance to grab me. So that would be on the fidgety and a grabby side of the story. Worst client experience. I don't think that people peeing or puking is the worst.
Yeah, that's not the worst.
It's just the worst reaction of their body. The worst client would be the person who's all over the place, who's like, I'm so happy, this is the best thing, do what you want, and then 15 minutes later, you ruined my life, this is this.
I had this worst client experience. You probably remember that girl. I made everything nice. She was happy. She went to the mirror. She loved it, and then she walked out from the shop. And after a few hours, she's writing me like, I don't want this tattoo anymore.
Yeah, I had
That's the only girl ever I had.
I had this with piercings where they're like, I came home, I realized that it's all wrong, you ruined it, I took it out, I want my money back. I was like, how am I supposed to know? I placed it where I usually place that piercing, you saw it in the mirror, you agreed, and then you came home and suddenly you are expert. You're like, no, it's wrong, I took it out, give me my money back. It's like, it's not how it works.
Yeah, man.
It's like, I bought a milk, went home, drank it, I didn't like the taste, give me money back, but I drank all of it.
Yep.
Okay, let's switch off the tattoo shop talk part is ending, so leave your comments down below of the situations and suggestions for the situations. Subscribe to the channel Tattoo Shop Talk. Papa Carlo is there, he's also available on his Instagram. I don't know what Instagram is, I'm only a YouTube person. So see you in a future episodes. Like, subscribes, and dislikes twice.
No more poo-poo stories.